This is Bird Fans Forever, the podcast for Illinois State fans celebrating the legends of Redbird athletics. Today we feature Charles Calhoun, a force on the offensive line from 1984 to 1987. Twice honored as All-Gateway Conference in 1986 and 87, Calhoun defined the tough, hard-nosed style of Redbird football, protecting the pocket, opening running lanes, and leaving a legacy of grit and pride at Hancock Stadium.
Hello and welcome to Bird Fans Forever. This is episode 76 with Charles Calhoun. How you doing, big man?
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us on our podcast. I can't believe we're at 76 episodes. So we're going to start this episode like we've started 75 other episodes. How'd you get to ISU? Let's talk about your recruiting process.
I was recruited in high school. Okay, I was kind of recruited in high school. I had my mother and stepfather raised me, and my mom couldn't afford to send us to college. So she thought if she moved us to Northeast Ohio, we could play sports. So I got introduced to Jerry Faust, Massillon, Ohio, Penn Hills, where I think Marino was from. And we chose Massillon, Ohio, a little steel mill town next to the Hall of Fame football. And Gus Patches was from there. He was a student there, and then he became our defensive coordinator. And he came and he signed me to go to Illinois State. He signed me as a defensive lineman and then gave me to the offense because he said they needed offensive linemen. So that's how I ended up there. Pat Dye called me the day before I committed on Tuesday, offered me a scholarship, and my mother picked up the phone and called Joe Namath's brother. They were lifelong friends, and Joe was the reason we moved to Massillon because he went there as a kid. And in his first book, he wrote about going to Massillon and realizing that sports were a show. And his brother said, listen, Charles, he didn't want you yesterday. He's not going to want you tomorrow. So I committed to Illinois State, and I went sight unseen. I mean, I visited Texas Christian. I did not want to go to a MAC school. You know, I played with Chris Spielman, some really great players, and if I was 6'3", I don't think I'd ever met any of my friends because I was very good, but I don't brag about myself being all that. But that's how I ended up at ISU. Gary Conley, which some of you guys may remember, my dad borrowed a van and $100 from somebody and brought me to Illinois State, and we stopped at Gary Conley's and knocked on his door and made him put his clothes. It made me cry. I'm a crier. Made him put his clothes in the van and go to Illinois State. And those kind of parents I had, and I ended up at Illinois State, and it's the best thing that ever happened in my life. Best thing that ever happened in my life. It gave me an opportunity to get an education. I mean, we'll get into that later, but that's how I ended up at ISU, and I'm so glad I did. I really am. I almost left. What's that?
I got to ask you. So you recruited for defense. When did you find out you're moving to the offense?
Oh, Gus told me when I showed up. It's because at that time I was a high school All-American at Massillon as an offensive lineman in USA Today and all that silly stuff. And he knew what I could do, and that's when he told me. He goes, "I brought you here for the offense."
And what was your initial thoughts when he said, "Okay, you're moving the offense"? Like, you're good with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was a better offensive player than defensive player. Let's get into sports a little bit. I hated pursuit. I was not going to run down that field and be out of breath every play. But I was really good at accomplishing my mission, whatever it might be. So yeah, I'm glad I went to offense. And great people from Daryl Crouch to Dave Schumer to. I mean, you can just roll the list. I mean, yeah. Jimmy Myers. I mean, everybody. Yeah.
All right, so we wanted to talk to you, right? What was the Valley like? What was one of your rivals back then? And the Valley was actually technically the gateway until it flipped over, right? So you want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't know much about that. Like I said, I like to play and didn't follow a lot of that, but I saw that happening. And rivalries, I had to play Brian Cox. Do you remember him at Western Illinois? The guy played pro and his son's playing pro.
Oh, yeah.
They made me play left tackle as a right guard. He broke my face mask on the first play of the game. He never got a tackle the whole game. So I accomplished what I was supposed to do, but that's when I found out what's really out there. And Southern Illinois was a great rivalry. Rick Spielman was GM at the Vikings. It's Chris Spielman's brother. We played each other. His parents showed up in the locker room before the game down in Southern Illinois and said, Rick's going to get you today. And he was literally in the scouting reports. Him and I had to play each other the whole game and beat the heck out of each other. It was a great experience. And so those kind of rivalries, beating Eastern Illinois, Mike Pryor with those pooch kickoffs where he'd run to the ball faster than anybody. Peyton, whatever his name is, that coached that thinking that with the Saints. I mean, Sean Payton or what?
Payton.
He was on the other side then, so so it was fun, but it was great experience. The last game of the year was the best because it was always at Northern Iowa because they had an indoor dome and we could play inside. And we're probably the reason Coach O got fired because every time we would go to Northern Illinois, we'd each sneak a fifth of wild turkey on the bus. By the time we got back, I had a great experience at Illinois State in a lot of ways, and I'll get into that when you're ready. But those were kind of my rivalries.
Wait a minute. So you get wild turkey on the bus. That's going to Northern Iowa. That's a
No, it's coming home.
Oh, coming home.
Because we knew there was nothing left. The games were over. What are they going to do? Cut me? And we all, you could hear the bottles roll back and forth on the bus when we'd slow down. I had a great college experience, and the athletics were great. But Illinois State changed my world culturally. And I took a nutrition class as a freshman. I didn't know there were proteins, fats, carbs. None of that. It changed my life. Pat Gregory teaching me that if you get your heart rate up to a certain point and keep it up for 20 minutes, you can change your cardiovascular system. And all the things it did to me, to get to go to the Art Institute in Chicago. And, I lived in my truck. I told you, John, my last semester to get my education, when I ran out of scholarship, I lived in my truck in Grant Park. And I would walk down to Diversity and, and bounce at Duffy's or Yaxie's, and then come back Tuesday and Thursdays, and I got an education, man. And that's what changed my life. I'll tell you, Illinois State means everything to me from that standpoint. Absolutely. And I know your president of the university is going to like hearing that, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
And everybody has their own journey, right? That's the great thing about it. And Coach Gregory was huge for us at ISU also, right?
Yeah, you talked about working out with Schumer and stuff. Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, and right after you guys finished spring ball and our season was done, right, when we went back in the spring and we're working out before we'd go home for the summer, because most of us would go home during those times. They don't have practice like they do today in men's basketball, summer practice.
Right.
I would be in there lifting with you guys, right? And so, because Coach Gregory would always be like, you need to get in here. And he wanted to push me to push more weight, right? Pushing with basketball players, they don't push at the time as much as football players did.
I benched 400, and Pat Gregory told me, and as a freshman, and Pat Gregory said, no. You don't bench press, you do inclines. Because that's an offensive lineman does an incline every time he blocks. He was very brilliant.
We did bench press, right? Because that's this motion with the forearms and that stuff. And so I benched 385. That's my max. But you did 400 as a freshman?
Yeah,
385 as a fifth-year senior.
I was a genetic freak. Like I said, I've never had a cavity. No, my family ever needed hearing aids, glasses. I hit the lottery physically. I really did. I was a very fortunate man. Things hurt now, though. Every finger's broke from the old days hurt now, and I'm going to buy another hip. That kind of stuff. But, yeah.
Great. All right, so let's talk about your offensive line. So let's go down to the guys you played with. Why don't you name some of them and talk about playing with those guys, right? You've named Schumer, who has been on episode, right? He's on episode 74. Name some of who was your center?
Dan Hackman.
Dan Hackman.
Both of his parents were lawyers. in Indianapolis, and he's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, but he showed me there was a way out. It was beautiful. You know what I mean? It was really a neat thing to be around Dan. He was very smart, but he was focused. And I wasn't a straight A student. I just said, stamp my hand. I want a degree. You know what I mean? That's all I want.
Right.
But Joe Spivak was in front of me. I thought as a young kid working hard every day, running up hills, I'm going to beat that Joe Spivak my first year. He became one of my best friends. You know, my first day in the dorm with him during camp, they would feed us sandwiches, probably you too, John, with basketball in camp. Hey, I got 2 peanut butters and 2 milks, and I'm sitting there in the little dorm room in Wilkins Hall. Joe Spivak walks in and flips his sweatshirt. He's got 20 sandwiches and 20 milks. I was like, Joe. But he was a really big part of the beginning of what I did. Daryl Crouch I used to walk with Daryl around campus at night, and he would just talk about football and just opportunities in life. And, Lynn Hankins. Lynn Hankins was an amazing offensive guard. But all the way around, the offensive line was great, and we had fun together. And Lynn was a roommate for a few years with me, and they were all just. Dave Schumer said that we had great coaches. Those coaches recruited great kids. 35, 40 years later, I contact probably 20 of them still once a month to say, hey, I don't want to lose you. I'm just saying hi. They all turned out to be good kids. Every one of them did, and they've made a difference. So that program brought a lot to the table, but my offensive line was great. I remember Jim Myers. He'll get mad if I tell this story. When he signed with the Browns, we got drafted like 8th round, he was dating a cheerleader at the time for the Chicago Bulls, Robin. And when he signed, and his agent gave him a check for like 10, 20 grand just to start, he took every piece of clothing he had, because he grew up in Wisconsin, blue jeans, flannel shirts, walked him to the curb of his house and sat it on the curb, and she took him to buy all new clothes because it changed his life. And Jim was brilliant, man. He was a great guy. So, yeah, the O-line was special to me.
All right, so off air, we kind of talked. You had some more Rick Spielman stories. We got the Oklahoma State stuff you want to talk about, and the Leapers. So we're going to start with Oklahoma State because I want to hear you talk about Barry Sanders, right?
Okay, well, to begin with, I was an offensive lineman. I was a captain. So the refs or umpires or whatever they call them comes to the locker room door and go, captains. I almost didn't make it to the middle of the football field. It was like a quarter-mile run. I couldn't keep up with those guys. Oh, it was great. But, we played tough. Thurman Thomas was on the sidelines. He played. He got 200 or 300 yards. They pulled him out and put this kid named Barry Sanders in. And Gus Patch just went nuts. You mean nobody could tackle him? And that's when he said, Charlie, it was goal line. Get in there. And I got to grab him once, tackle him. And I played high school football with Chris Spielman, and Chris was with the Lions. And I knew Wayne Fonts growing up, being right there in Canton where he was from. And his best friend was my best friend's dad. So we go up there for games, and Wayne would hook us up. And afterwards, we go to the NFL get-together before everybody would leave the stadium. And Barry and I would have fun. I'd tell him about tackling him and all that fun stuff. And he's a good man. I'm not a very religious person. Barry Sanders signed his signing bonus for $3 million. He said, write me a check for $2.7, and I'm tithing. Write a check to my church for $300,000. He was a great human being. And we've all seen what after that, but yeah. So that was my Barry Sanders, Oklahoma State story. It was fun. It was a great experience. It really was. They were taller and they were faster.
Yeah. That's what happens when you start playing the Power 5 conferences, right? People get bigger, faster, stronger. So, all right. Now, your next story you kind of talked about off air was the leaper. So describe what this leaper is, and then why.
The leaper is you stand on it, and there's 2 pads that go over your shoulders with handles, and you just jump, and it increases your vertical leap. So it's me and Rick Spielman, GM Vikings, and Chris Spielman, who we all know who Chris is. But the three of us are in the room, a little 8x8 room, and we're watching game films. And Rick was so into it, he passed out sitting next to us. Fell on the ground while the film's still rolling in a dark room. Yeah, Rick was great, just a great person. And like I shared with you, I got to play against him down at Southern Illinois. That was a highlight for me when the scouting reports came out like on a Monday, and I was going to get to play against Rick Spielman. That was fun.
So he's on the leaper just jumping while you guys are breaking down game tape.
Oh, yeah, he was watching them too. The Spielmans watch that stuff 10 hours a day. I mean, we would go in 2 hours before class started and watch film.
We would too. We were watching 10 hours a day, but we were watching a good 60 to 90 minutes. But yeah.
Man, Chris and Rick knew cover threes and cover fours before they were 10 years old. Their dad coached. So they were really getting a lot out of film even then. So, but yeah, that was a great. Rick was great. I love Rick. Rick, we had to go home for a funeral. Steve Studer passed away. He started a weightlifting club in his basement, and I was the first one with him. It became the torture chamber. And then I invited Chris and Rick to it. And that man died. He was a mentor of ours. He played at Bowling Green, but he taught us how to powerlift. And when he died, we were at the high school for the funeral because there was a couple thousand people for this. And Rick and Chris Spielman saw my dad and started running down the hallway going, "Coach, coach, coach." And my dad coached at Madison a little bit. And I told my dad when we got home, I said, "Do you really understand that those kind of people call you coach? The difference coaches can make in people's lives. You did it." So Rick's are just a great, they both are. You know what I mean? That's them, but I just know them as friends. I mean, but yeah, Rick was great. Rick was a hoot. He was good. He was Superman.
Yep.
He didn't drink. He didn't party. He did what he was supposed to do every day of his life. Yeah.
So Charles, you played offensive guard, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you don't get much stats as offensive guard. Back when you were playing, holding was the only stat they probably credited you with. But and even in the NFL, like the tackle's like the most touted position, and they paid that. Talk about being in the most probably underappreciated offensive position and being in the trenches. And then I want to talk about like pass blocking when there's 9 million people around you, people are falling all over you, rolling up on your legs and stuff like that. I don't know. Can you talk about those experiences?
Sure. The offensive guard does a lot. He's pulling, having to deal with force on the outside, other things like that. I enjoyed being an offensive guard. Luckily, I had Coach Hefner, which he went to Temple, so he had a noggin on his head. You know what I mean? So he could teach me. And my goal wasn't to be like Joe Spivak. I didn't need to be the biggest, baddest guy on the field. I just wanted to accomplish what my objective was, my goal. And I enjoyed it. I went a year and a half without giving up a sack. That's a kind of a statistic. I mean, a year and a half. I mean, I got Offensive Player of the Year my junior year. I mean, you know what I mean? I was an effective person, but as an offensive lineman, you had to work with each other. And I loved every minute of it. And like I told you, they'd move me to different positions whenever they had a player I had to deal with. Like Offerdahl, I think he was at Western Michigan, linebacker. I couldn't find him. I couldn't catch him. He was that fast. I couldn't put hands on him. And I'll go back to this, and now you guys are going to love this. You guys, the president of the university might not like it. I played my first year at Illinois State and was redshirted. We had to exchange game films every week, like 3 game films. Gus Patches cut me out of every film we exchanged so that I could get another year at Illinois State. I mean, but so I love playing offensive guard. It was great, and everything. We went to a lot of quarterbacks and stuff, and I was always their biggest fan. You know what I mean? I told Ed Cheatham, "You're bringing us to the promised land. That's who you are. Let's go." Every time we're in the huddle, we're bringing it. You're going to do this, and Brian Gant, playing against Brian Gant, who had, played at Tampa, we would have to do one-on-ones, and it was always me and Brian. It was always me and Spielman. But Brian would look at me and get in that two-point stance and smile and go, "Let's do it, Charlie." He was a dear friend, and then beat the heck out of each other. Like Schumer said, we walk off the field as friends. So I really enjoyed all the way around. Being an offensive guard was a great experience for me. It really was. It really was.
When you watch a football game now, do you look at the line and?
Yeah, I'm like you guys. I can kind of watch the whole field. Like you'll see what the line's doing, and then what's going on in the backfield as they develop stuff, and then the secondary, and you know what I mean. So I kind of have a pattern I follow. But yeah, the offensive line is, it's fun to watch them. It is, and the dominant ones, and they're great. Like you said, they're not in the statistics. The only time you hear about them is a holding call.
Yeah. Did you like run blocking or pass blocking better, or like both?
I was barely 6 foot. The Steelers scouts never said I was 6 foot. So I was better, I think, in the rush. You know what I mean? I could get under people.
Yeah.
I played at 300 pounds, so I was still strong. And pass protecting was, I was pretty good at it. I didn't have long arms, but I'd say I did all right. Like I said, I didn't give up a sack for a long time, and it was that first step. It's what. But yeah, I enjoyed probably rushing a little bit better. Yeah, we played Eastern Washington once out in Spokane, and it was my 21st birthday, and we played. I had a 6'8" guy over me, and at the beginning of the game, he stood up and grabbed my face mask and ripped my helmet off. And when he did, he tore this thing that connects your upper lip to your. I still don't have it. So I didn't go back to my huddle. I followed him to his huddle and started a fight. So yeah, it was fun stuff. You know what I mean? So, and that was during a pass protection play. But yeah, it was great. Really.
You guys played some team like, Central Florida, who's now in the P5. You guys whooped them when they came to ISU. I don't know if people know this, right? I mean, Tulsa and Wichita State used to be D1, and we were D1 your first 2 years, and then they had the 1AA your junior year.
Right.
There was some decent schools. You guys played Youngstown State, beat them. That's in your background, right?
Yeah, Marshall came in and played us. We were up 28-0 at Central Florida when we flew down there, and we lost that game. But it was neat getting off the airplane there. It was like, oh my God, it's hot. You know what I mean? I've been to Florida, but it was like, oh, I got to play in this. And we played in the old Orange Bowl. That was fun. It really was fun. And when I went to law school in Akron, a lot of the guys would come from Illinois State, and we'd all get together up there and watch Youngstown State play Illinois State. And that was a lot of fun. But yeah, we had a couple. The only game I ever got kicked out of was Wichita State game. They did something they shouldn't have done to my running back, so I followed them to the sidelines and started a fight with their D-line.
That is awesome, but what year is that? Because Wichita State drops their football program probably during the time you were in college.
It was early, maybe 85, 86, somewhere in there.
Because it wasn't there when I was there, I think in 85, so 83,
Okay.
84, right?
We played that game. We all had to weigh in, and they weighed our luggage. So they know where to put us on the charter plane so it would balance. You talk about a scary flight. Yes, sir. But they were fun. Every game was fun.
So Charles, you talked about your teammate was a lawyer, right? And you kind of mentioned you're a lawyer now. Talk about that. Like, how did that progress, and how did you decide to become an attorney?
I was always a kid that I was always a kid that mom and dad said you got an excuse for everything. You need to be a lawyer one day. And my grandfather had a third grade education, and I promised him I'd be a lawyer. And when he died, I went immediately to law school. You know what I mean? I've had a very fortunate life, but I always want to be a lawyer. My mother said, if you do this, the rest of your life is up to you. You're going to have a great opportunity to have a good life. So that's what I did. And that was hard. That was hard to do.
So where'd you go to law school at?
Akron, University of Akron, Blake McDowell Law School. Yes, sir. And that was fun.
And what year did you start law school at? Because you finished in '87.
I started when I was 29.
Okay, so you waited.
Because I had a family business that our family started that went crazy. And I mean, I was part owner of like 7 hair salons when I was 26 years old. I mean, and I never cut hair. I mean, it was just a business thing. And when he passed, I said, and that's where I took what money I had in the business and went to law school. And my first semester of law school, I got a 1.79. My last semester, I got a 4.0. I didn't think I had what it took to be a lawyer. I never grew up talking to a lawyer or a doctor unless he was fixing me. And I figured it out. But I'm a country lawyer. You know what I mean? I've had judges say, which one's the defendant, which one's the lawyer? I don't button my top button. I'll just pull my tie up to here. There's 100 counties. I've appeared in 48 counties. And I'm semi-retired now, but I really love and enjoy. I'm a people person, shaking hands and building relationships through the years to where I can show up 100 miles from here in a courtroom and I go, hey, it's Charles Calhoun. Let's get him out of here. So it's been a great opportunity. And my nephew now is he makes twice the money I do. He's a lawyer. My family has gone on professionally to own business. And I always felt I was the first one that really got to go to college. And, and maybe I pat myself on the back, but I don't. I didn't think I could do it. That made me cry, but they know they can do it now, and it's awesome. My nephew graduated first of his class at William & Mary Law School. Number 1, buddy. So yeah, being a lawyer has been a great experience in life, and I'm a guy that's free. I like being free. I mean, really free. And as a lawyer, you don't get a get out of jail card. I'm not riding around doing stupid stuff, but I've loved that independence. I really have enjoyed it. And that's all because of Illinois State. Come on.
All right, so when I was talking to Charles on the phone, he came and I had him do a little homework, so I hope he said he's got a punch list of things he wants to talk about. So
thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, everybody. When I played at Illinois State, the ticket stubs from basketball and football had buy one, get one free Whopper on the back.
Oh, yeah.
And the Whopper was less than $2. That's what I lived on. I ate 6 Whoppers one day, and the manager of the Burger King there on campus called Coach O. And he walks up to me when I'm starting practice as a captain and goes, Cal, really? 6 Whoppers? Big Rudy, he loved me to death and made sure I had food to eat and stuff like that. And me and Jeff Katona and John Kropke and 3 girls were all in the same class. I asked Big Rudy if we could interview him because we had to do a term paper on businesses. So we're sitting in that little round booth there in the back of Rudy's. Coach O walks in with 2 State Farm executives. Cal, what's that? I go, it's a Long Island iced tea. He goes, take the rest of spring off. You're done. Really? So I walked up to the bar where he's sitting with the State Farm guys. I go, Coach, I'm 21. It's not football season. I'm doing a school project. He goes, oh, no, Cal, you can do nothing wrong. I go, really? I go, hey, Rudy, will you get another round for all of us back there? I came back the next year as the 3rd string offensive guard. Coach F was like, I can get you back on the team, you just got to apologize. I go, I'm not apologizing. I did nothing wrong. So that was a funny, I remember sitting in the coach's office, little red couch, some of you guys, there was like 3 little seats, and I'm sitting there with Jim Meyer. Gene Upshaw comes in and sits between us, and Jim Meyer did not know who Gene Upshaw was. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh, my.
What was Gene Upshaw doing in Illinois
I don't think he was a director of player personnel yet, but I think he was recruiting Jim. Jim ended up with the Raiders after he was with the Browns.
Yeah.
So I think he was kind of recruiting Jim a little bit and seeing what he was all about. Me and Dave Schumer. John Cropkey had a scooter. Another friend did, those Honda Elite scooters. We went to campus one Sunday afternoon when the family's barbecuing, started racing around the quad. Cop comes running after us. I stopped. Dave kept going. The next day, we're in football practice, and a law enforcement officer truck pulls up, puts on his big brim hat. I'm going, Dave, look. We were in the huddle. He walks up and starts talking to Coach. Coach O's like, y'all get over here. That was to me that was fun. That was very funny.
You can't stop.
What did he say?
What did he say?
He just told Coach O what we did and said they weren't going to press any charges, but he wanted us to know that we need to behave ourselves. And we weren't bad kids, and we were just doing that, so.
You guys started the whole green scooter business by doing that.
What's that? Yeah.
You were just early.
Early, you ain't kidding. I was telling John earlier, I used to write code I could write DOS when I was 14 years old. I just never stuck with it. It bored me. Let's see what I can do. Oh, you're going to love this one. So when I went to Illinois State, Piedmont Airlines was in North Carolina. I was still around. And so I would fly every now and then. I got a frequent flyer card. Every time we traveled as a team and flew somewhere, I would sneak up to the counter, check it in, and give my frequent flyer card. So I always had enough points to fly home for Thanksgiving. I was in Illinois. What's that? I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was in Illinois State my first semester. They said, all right, everybody, we got to bring your books, turn them in. We're so at the bookstore, blah, blah. I wouldn't turn any of mine in. I said, read my scholarship. It says full tuition and books. Those are my books to sell back. If you want us to be academics, shouldn't we keep them and have a library? They lost their minds. They wanted us to, in camp, and John, you probably went through this, the FBI would come in and talk to us and say, listen, if you tell your dad your quarterback's hurt, people that gamble, that could be a thing. You know what I mean? So you can't do that.
Absolutely.
And then they also said, you need to sign this. And it was when that NCAA was just starting drug testing. And I refused to sign it. I said, you wanted mommy's signature when we were going to do something with our grades, but now you don't want mommy's signature to drug test us? I'm not signing it. A week before the game, Coach Heff and Coach O sit me down and go, if you don't sign it, you can't play. I said, okay, I'll sign it. I did a backwards C, a backwards H. This is BS, man. Now,
wait. Go back to the books. How did you get away with not because they were on us?
I wouldn't do it.
Right with this message.
I stood my ground.
I mean, we knew that if we weren't in there within 12 hours of classes, you had class being over, I would literally walk by the Alamo, I'd turn in my book. Go back, take my next final, walk by the Alamo, turn in that book. Right?
Oh, yeah, but I just didn't. Did you know Rex Brown in Rockford? He was my roommate for a year or two. He was a kinesiologist kind of guy. Let me see here. Big rehab. Gus Patches once. He called me up on a Monday to the defensive meeting, and he gave me the biggest hit award. As an offensive lineman, he was a defensive coordinator. And he had the game clip of me. I was like, heck yeah, that's pretty good. I remember, you guys might or might not, John, you probably do. When the Mama Tours opened with Genesis, they came in with their 4 tour buses and stayed for a week because they were putting up a concert and they wanted to work out all the tech stuff. And
I don't think I was there yet. John and Steve, were you there when Genesis came?
Yeah, that was our freshman year.
Yeah, so Charles, I wasn't there yet.
We would have to walk through Horton Fieldhouse to get to the football field. We became friends with with Phil Collins, everybody else. Phil Collins is eating a sandwich and sang happy birthday to Joe Spivak on that stage.
Oh,
nice.
That's cool.
Just when they were doing sound check and we were having fun. Let me see what else. Tom and Monica was an important part of my life. he saw early on, he goes, Charlie, you can do these press conferences, and he's radio thing, you're pretty good at it. And I've won awards in advertising as an actor and writing stuff in radio, television, print. And I think Tom was one of those folks that believed in me and said, come on, Charlie, you can do this.
And Charlie, Tom has been on the
I
podcast
saw his interview. I called him when he went into the Hall of Fame and thanked him.
And we
called him when I got into law school.
We see him at games still to this day.
Called him when I got into law school and cried like a baby. I called Pat Gregory and I was like, thank you guys. But I know, and I'll try and wrap it up with this.
No.
I'll keep going.
Punch list. We're good.
They had me bodyguard Dick Versace. Did you play against him? Here's Brad.
All right, okay, you're done with your punch list. No way. If you protected him at all, you're dead to me. Just dead to me.
See, I knew that.
I would have hoped you just slam him into a wall and just beat him to a pulp. I would have.
He had big white hair, and they knew I was a nice kid, so I wouldn't do something stupid and hit somebody. But the crowd was throwing, you might remember this, pennies at him and toilet paper rolls. And it was the biggest scene of my life. And then he went on, I think, to coach the Pistons. You know what I mean?
Charles, wait, pause right there. Yeah, we would practice before the Bradley game. We would literally go to the free throw line, and coaches would throw pennies and M&Ms at us because you would get, or ice cubes, you would get that in the game, right? And you would say to the referee, like, all of a sudden there'd be a penny or an M&M in front of your feet. I'd be like, hey, there's an M&M. This is dangerous. And the ref would come up, and I'm like, you gonna do anything about it? He's like, do you know who threw it? No. Well, I ain't gonna do shit about it. Right? And then of course, bink, we get hit again, and bink, get hit again, and so.
Well, you played against Larry Bird's brother, probably, did you?
Eddie. Okay. Yes. Yep.
I remember I watched that game. Yep. Another funny, keep it or cut it. I had a pea jacket, one of those big Navy jackets. Jeff Katana was my roommate, great guy from South Bend. We had study hall across from the football office. It was a kinesiology lab or whatever. Jeff Katana found a human skeleton hanging on a rack in there. So I wore my pea coat in the next night. We put it around the skeleton and put his arms over us. And Jeff and I had to walk through Horton Fieldhouse right before a basketball game, people everywhere. And we get it out. So then Jeff takes it home. He was a collector. He's in South Bend, Indiana, Miami Street or Miami Avenue. His house caught on fire and burnt to the ground. We ended up with the FBI. I flew up the next day when I heard that happen for Jeff. He's my best friend. And the FBI ended up there going, we found a skeleton that's burnt in your basement. Then they realized he was like, how did we just, that was it. So that was so funny. We had football practice on Halloween on a Saturday morning. It was a bye week for us. And, the coaches, I was really in the loop. They sat me down and said, what do you think we should do for practices with the bye week and stuff? And I was like, you do not want to have practice Saturday if Halloween's Friday night. Me, Tom Blumenshine, there were like 4 or 5 of us. We went to the costume party at Big Rudy's, and one of us won the first prize. A Jughead did, Rich Bailey, and that was $250. We never went to bed that night. So the next morning, hey, Coach, we're not going to make it past period 10. I'm just telling you. Yeah, whatever, Cal. I walked out with a Richard Nixon mask under my helmet and took it off when I broke the team down. Everybody lost their mind. By the 4th or 5th period, we're doing, position drills. People were throwing up, and they had to cancel practice. Like I told you guys, but we never went to bed. You guys probably remember or not. We were having so much fun in college. They had to pass a city ordinance where they couldn't transport a keg after 10 p.m. from Redbird Liquors.
Yeah.
Because, you get your first couple kegs and you get enough money, you go get 3 more or whatever. I do want to give a shout out to somebody. John Jerkis was a linebacker for Illinois State. He went to Air Force Academy. His second year, he ended up at Illinois State. He's very, when I talk about school changing my life, he sat me down. We were roommates. He goes, Charles, let me show you something. Bring me your syllabuses and all your books. And he sat down and showed me how to outline a book. He said, you're going to have 4 tests, 3 chapters each. Here are your chapters. And within 2 days, I never had to do anything again. I passed all my classes. He was brilliant, but he was from Cicero, so he'd been around a little bit. But I want to thank Doc and Kathy and Ruben, of course, like you mentioned. They kept me alive. They, do you edit this?
We could.
I could.
Okay.
Do I need to?
I don't know. You tell me. I remember first week of camp, Doc said, you're going to have to get your ankles taped. 3 days. They don't do those anymore. We're going to shave your ankles, knee down for the year. He goes, they're going to tape yours. Now, listen, you're young guys. So whatever you do with that foot, don't be working that boob.
That was totally Doc, right? But we got tape too. We got tape for everything.
Yeah, well, yeah. And it was great. And Doc and Kathy would put a poster up between the 2 tables where we'd get taped. And it was a fat guy sitting on a keg with food dripping down his chest. And they wrote Charlie Calhoun on it. Because I never had a neat shirt. But if I could, okay, I'm going to wrap it up with this. Illinois State changed my life. And the way the world now talks about college is a waste of time. Man, I walked into John Jeweler, who played there as defensive tackle. I did not know who Judas Priest was. I didn't know who Jimi Hendrix was. I didn't know who Led Zeppelin was. And I ended up representing one of the Allman Brothers for about the last 10 years of my life. Been on the road with those guys. So the full circle, just cultural things that Illinois State gave me. I'll never forget walking around campus my freshman year. This is the world. It was still a college campus where everything was just great. And the people there were a positive influence. Mike Babbix played. He was a senior when I was a freshman and sophomore. He became superintendent of schools back in Stark County, where the Hall of Fame is for football and where I was from. And PhD and all that. When he was in college, he looked like one of the Ramones. Long black hair, wore an army jacket with no T-shirt, and a pair of jeans and work boots. And he would say, Charles, I was me, Issy Human Awanui, his son ended up playing with the Patriots for Bill for a while, and Wade Mullen. And he would sit there, Mike Babbix would dress like one of the Ramones and say, don't let this place ruin you. You must get your education. You must get your grades. And, that's what Illinois State means to me. It's just, it changed my life. I love the sports. John, I saw some of the games in basketball every now and then. But Illinois State changed my life. It changed my life. And I want to thank Illinois State and the Birds Forever for letting me share my story. It means a lot.
And this has been awesome. Normally we go into closing, but since you're an attorney, I normally need to tell the guests we're going to closing. You just went right into closing. That was awesome. So with that, Charles, thank you so much for being on Bird Fans Forever. This has been episode 76 with Charles Calhoun. You are awesome. Jon Diener, hit the clapping, baby.
Wow.